In South Korea's older neighborhoods, cheap apartments come with unspoken histories. Rooms that turn over too quickly, landlords who avoid certain questions, and rents so low they feel like warnings. Tonight's story comes from a young woman who grew up with very little. Years of living in small boxed units were a common thing for her. But what she found in that apartment wasn't freedom. It was something she never invited in, and something that refused to leave her alone. Come along with me as I retell this encounter about my friend's sister. I will be drawing the events without the use of AI on Procreate while storytelling. When I was 20, I moved into an apartment in the northeastern part of Seoul. At that age, I didn't care much about anything other than the rent. I had just left a job in Jonggu after burning out, and my savings were embarrassingly thin. The new place was old, poorly insulated, and made of that yellow brick you see all over the older neighborhoods. But it was cheap. Too cheap, honestly. A one-room studio for less than half the usual rent should have been an obvious red flag. But when you're broke and ashamed of being broke, you pretend deals like that are just good luck. The landlord didn't say much. He walked me up the narrow stairs, handed me the key and said, "People don't stay long, but if you're quiet, you'll be fine." At the time, I assumed he meant the neighbors were strict. The first night was quiet. The room smelled faintly like old cigarettes and industrial cleaner. The wallpaper was peeling a little near the ceiling, and the refrigerator made a clicking noise every few minutes. But it was fine. Normal. The second night was when I had the sleep paralysis episode. I woke up, or I felt like I woke up, with my eyes half open. I could see the slanted ceiling above me, the dim orange glow of the street lamp leaking through the curtains. But I couldn't move. At first I thought it was stress. I'd had milder sleep paralysis before, stray episodes after all-nighters, but this was different. I felt something pressing down on my chest, not crushing, but heavy, like someone kneeling on me. And I heard breathing, not mine, slow, unstable breathing, like someone with damaged lungs, a sick, wheezing rhythm. It was coming from the corner of the room, right next to the wardrobe. I strained to move even a finger, but my body felt frigidly paralyzed. I tried to scream. Nothing. I could hear the heaviness in my breath along with another wheezing rhythm. The breathing continued until, suddenly, it stopped. And at that exact moment, the paralysis released. I sat up, gasping, drenched in sweat. The corner was empty. I told myself it was a nightmare. But 2 nights later, it happened again. This time, I saw a shadow near the wardrobe, a patch of darkness that pulsed its way around the room and towards my direction. And then, the breathing came again. Worse, right next to my ear. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I left the lights on until sunrise. A few days later, I met up with my friend Mireille for lunch. I had been feeling depressed and exhausted. For some reason, I kept feeling so lost and drained. So I thought, maybe going out would help me feel better. "You look terrible," she said as soon as she saw me. I laughed it off, joked about living off convenience store foods, but she didn't buy it. We were halfway through our kimbap when she finally asked, "Are you sleeping okay?" The question startled me. I didn't want to sound dramatic or strange, but I admitted it. I keep getting sleep paralysis, and I think it's the apartment. It feels weird. I expected her to tease me or tell me to get some more rest, but instead, she immediately reached into her bag, rifled through some papers and makeup pouches, and pulled out a small, rectangular yellow paper. A talisman. A bougiac. "Keep this by your pillow," she said. "It's from a shaman I went to. It helped me when I had a problem last year." I stared at it. I didn't really believe in that sort of thing, but something about the way she spoke, serious, with no hesitation, made me take it. "Don't laugh at it," she said quietly. "Just try it." I promised I would. That night, I placed the talisman under my pillow, feeling ridiculous. But I was exhausted, so exhausted that the moment I lay down, I fell into a deep sleep. No paralysis, no breathing in the corner, no shadow. Instead, I had a dream. I was standing in my apartment, except the layout was slightly different. The wardrobe wasn't there. The front door was a different color. It felt like the same room, but in another time. A man was sitting on the floor with his back to me. He was shirtless and wore dark pants. He was bald, and his shoulders were thin, almost fragile. He didn't know I was there. He just sat, rocking slightly, staring at the wall, breathing heavily. I stepped closer. Something in me told me not to, but dreams have a strange logic. You move without choosing to. When I got close enough, he slowly turned his head. I will never forget his face. His eyes were sunken, ringed with purple bruises. His expression wasn't angry. It was hollow, lifeless. He didn't have a mouth, but somehow his breathing was loud as if he were wheezing. And then, suddenly, he was inches from my face. I felt his breath, cold, damp and suffocating. His hand reached toward my neck. I woke up screaming. For the first time in my life, I actually screamed myself awake. The talisman burned hot under my pillow. The next morning, I told Mireille everything. The paralysis, the man, the dream that felt realer than waking life. She listened carefully, then said, "When I had a problem last year, my mom took me to see her shaman friend. Why don't we go see if she can help you as well?" I was desperate and afraid. I didn't want to go back home. We took a bus to Noan, then a taxi to a small street near Sodaksan. The shaman's house looked like any other old residential building, except for a small wooden sign near the door. Inside, the air smelled of incense and dried herbs. Wind chimes hung from the low ceiling. The shaman was a woman in her late 40s, wearing a simple white blouse. She didn't look mystical or intimidating. She just looked normal. She didn't ask my name. She didn't ask what was happening. She just stared at me for a few seconds and said, "You're in danger with your home." My whole body froze. "What do you mean?" She gestured for me to sit. Then she lit a small bowl of incense and waved it gently in front of her. "There is a man in your apartment," she said. "He died there, but not recently." My mouth went dry. "He didn't die peacefully. His energy is enveloping you. Basically, if you do not get rid of him, he will make you take your life in the same manner he took his." I felt my stomach twist. "Why me?" "Because you noticed him. Many people can't see spirits. They can sense them, and spirits cling to the first person who acknowledges them. Spirits don't want to be alone." Then she added something even more disturbing. "You spoke to him. A reaction is enough." I felt my breath shaking. "So, what do I do?" She reached into her drawer and took out a new talisman, folded twice and wrapped with red thread. "This one will cut the connection," she said, "but you need to leave the apartment for 3 nights after using it. Do not sleep there until the energy breaks." I looked at Mireille. She nodded for me to take it. The shaman continued, "When you use this, leave immediately afterwards. If you hear a voice, do not answer. If you feel anything, do not turn around. Just leave. Don't react." Her tone was calm, matter of fact, like she was giving directions to the subway. I didn't know whether to feel reassured or terrified. That evening, back at my apartment, I followed her instructions exactly. I shut off the lights, opened the window, placed the talisman in the center of the room. Then, I lit the small incense stick she had given me and walked toward the door. At first, nothing happened. Then, the air grew heavy. The room felt colder, like a winter draft had slipped inside. I felt pressure at my back, the same weight I felt during the sleep paralysis, except this time I was awake. I kept walking, but I felt something behind me. A shuffle of feet, a breath, a faint sound like someone trying to speak but unable to form the words. I reached for the doorknob. A whisper brushed against my ear. A man's voice. "Don't go." I froze. Everything in me wanted to turn around. The loneliness in his tone, the overwhelming feeling of spiraling despair, a deep sadness aching and scratching at my chest. But the shaman's warning echoed in my mind. Do not look back. Do not answer. I forced my hand to move, opened the door, and stepped into the hallway. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the tears on my shirt. I felt a tingle at the back of my neck from my hair raising, and my heart was beating so loud it was about to burst. I left the building and stayed with Mireille for the next 3 nights. When I finally returned, the apartment felt different. The air was still, neutral and empty. I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel that pressure on my chest anymore. But the wardrobe door was wide open. I always kept it closed. Inside, on the back wall, someone had scratched a mark. 3 single vertical lines made with something sharp. I moved out that weekend. I didn't try to get my deposit back. I didn't care. Before leaving, I asked the landlord if anyone had died in the unit. He sighed, as if exhausted from the question. A man lived there. Many years ago, he struggled with things. He passed away inside the room. Why didn't you tell me? The landlord shrugged. People don't stay long anyway. I live in a newer office town now, farther from the subway, more expensive but peaceful. I haven't had sleep paralysis since. Sometimes, I think about the man in that room, about the way he looked in the dream, broken, empty and desperate for someone to acknowledge him. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if the ritual freed him or just cut him from me. But one thing the shaman said still lingers in my mind. Spirits claim to the ones who notice them. These days, when something moves in the corner of my vision, or when I hear a strange sound in the middle of the night, I make sure not to look. And I never, ever answer. In many parts of South Korea, old apartments are more than aging buildings. They're containers of memory. The walls absorb the hardships of the people who lived there before, and the rooms hold on to things that were never spoken aloud. The belief in restless spirits isn't simply superstition. Korean shamans, or mudang, say that emotions of the moment of death, fear, loneliness, regret, can bind a spirit to a specific place, or even a living person who unknowingly acknowledges them. Some spirits also force their energy onto a living person, changing their energy, their thoughts, and eventually their actions. Whether the presence in her apartment was a lingering soul or a manifestation of long-neglected sorrow, the encounter left a mark she will never forget. Some rooms stay cheap for a reason. Some hallways stay cold no matter the season. And sometimes, the past doesn't stay buried beneath the floorboards of a building. It waits for someone vulnerable to notice it. Thank you for listening. What do you guys think the lonely ghost wanted from our storyteller? Drop it below in the comments and share your opinion of our storyteller's experience. Catch you guys again in the next airy story.